Staff Sergeant Dong Hyun. Jang checked his equipment one more time as the transport ship approached the border colony of New Haven. His reconnaissance unit had been sent to investigate reports of strange activity in the area. Nothing too serious, just some missing supply ships and odd energy readings. "Looks quiet down there, Sarge," said Private So-Young Kim, the unit's medic. She was looking through the ship's sensors at the colony below. Maybe the reports were wrong. "Maybe," Dong Hyun replied, but his instincts told him otherwise. After 10 years in the army, he had learned to trust his gut feelings. Something was not right about this place. Corporal Chang Min Park, their communications specialist, looked up from his equipment. "I am getting some weird signals. Looks like there are ships hiding behind the asteroid field." Dong Hyun nodded. "How many?" "Hard to tell. At least 50, maybe more. They are using some kind of signal dampener to hide their numbers." The unit consisted of 12 soldiers, all regular infantry with standard training. They had been told this was a simple reconnaissance mission. Find out what happened to the missing ships and report back. "Nothing dangerous." "Sarge," called Private Hee-Jin Bae from the pilot's seat. "We have company coming up fast. Multiple ships breaking cover from the asteroids." Through the viewports, Dong Hyun could see sleek black ships emerging from hiding spots among the rocks. They had the sharp design and dark colors of Krillian military vessels. This was not good. "How many?" he asked. 57 ships so far," Chung Min reported. "And they are big ones. Battle cruisers and destroyers." So-Young checked her medical kit and weapon. "What are Krillian warships doing in neutral space?" "Nothing good," Dong Hyun muttered. The Krillian Confederation had been testing boundaries lately, seeing how far they could push before the Galactic Council responded. An attack on a human colony would be a major escalation. "Incoming transmission," Chang Min announced. "They are demanding our surrender." Dong Hyun thought for a moment. 57 warships against one small reconnaissance unit. The smart thing would be to retreat and call for backup. But the colony below had 3,000 civilians who could not escape in time. "Tell them no," he said simply. Chang Min stared at him. "Sarge, there are 57 of them and 12 of us." "I can count, Corporal." "Send the message." What Dong Hyun did not know was that the Krillian fleet was commanded by War Prince Thakmor, one of their greatest military leaders. Thakmor had brought the absolute best warriors the Confederation had to offer. These were not regular troops, but the elite death guard that had never lost a battle. Thakmor had studied the reports about human soldiers. He knew that humans were dangerous, but he believed his death guard could handle anything. They had been training for months specifically to fight humans. They were ready. "The humans refused to surrender," War Prince reported his communications officer. "Good," Thakmor said with satisfaction. "I wanted to test our new tactics against them." "Begin the attack." Down on the colony, Dong Hyun was setting up defensive positions with his small unit. They had managed to land and evacuate most of the civilians to underground shelters. Now they just had to hold off a fleet until help arrived. "Chang Min, did you get that message out to command?" Dong Hyun asked as he checked his rifle. "Yes, Sarge. Help is coming, but it will take 6 hours to get here." 6 hours against 57 warships. Dong Hyun had been in tough spots before, but this might be impossible even for trained soldiers. Still, they had a job to do. So-Young, how are the civilians? "All safe in the emergency bunkers," the medic reported. "The shelters can protect them from orbital bombardment." "Good. Now we just have to make sure those ships do not land troops." The first wave of Krillian fighters screamed down from orbit, firing energy weapons at the human positions. Dong Hyun and his team took cover and returned fire with their standard rifles. The weapons were not designed for fighting spacecraft, but they made do. To Dong Hyun's surprise, several fighters exploded after taking hits from infantry weapons. He had expected them to be better armored. "Nice shooting," he called to his team. "Keep it up." More fighters came down, followed by troop transports. Hundreds of Krillian Death Guard warriors began landing around the colony. These were 8-foot-tall aliens with natural armor and weapons that could cut through steel. "Here they come," So-Young said, raising her rifle. What happened next would become known throughout the galaxy as the Krillian catastrophe. The Death Guard, expecting to face the legendary human special forces, instead found 12 regular soldiers who thought they were just doing their job. The Krillians attacked in perfect formation, using tactics that had worked against every other species in the galaxy. They moved like a wall of death, shields locked together and weapons ready. Dong-hyun's unit spread out and used basic infantry tactics they had learned in training. Nothing fancy, just good field work and accurate shooting. They took cover, flanked the enemy, and supported each other like any well-trained unit would do. But to the Krillians, it looked like magic. The humans seemed to predict every move before it happened. They appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles. Their weapons found every weakness in Krillian armor. Impossible. War Prince Thakmor watched the battle from his command ship. His elite Death Guard was being destroyed by a handful of humans. How are they doing this? His tactical officer was shaking with fear.
Sir, these must be human special forces.
No regular troops could fight like this. But the intelligence report said there were only 12 of them. How can 12 Special Forces soldiers do so much damage? Down on the surface, Dong-hyun was having his own problems. The Krillians kept coming in waves and his ammunition was running low. But they were holding their ground. Sarge, Changmin called out, I am picking up chatter from their command ship. They think we are Special Forces. Special Forces? Dong-hyun laughed as he reloaded his rifle. We are just regular infantry. What would make them think that? Maybe because we are winning? So-young suggested as she bandaged a minor wound on Private Jinwoo's arm. The battle continued for 3 more hours. Wave after wave of Krillian elite warriors landed on the colony, only to be defeated by 12 humans with standard equipment and basic training. The aliens could not understand how this was possible. From orbit, War Prince Thakmor watched his forces being destroyed. 500 of his best warriors were dead or wounded. The humans had not lost a single soldier. Sir, his communications officer said quietly, perhaps we should retreat. Retreat? Thakmor stared at the battle below. The Death Guard does not retreat. Sir, these are human special forces. The intelligence reports were wrong about their numbers. We cannot win this battle. Thakmor made the hardest decision of his military career. Signal full retreat. All ships return to Confederation space immediately. On the surface, Dong-hyun watched in amazement as the Krillian ships pulled back and disappeared into hyperspace. His unit had won against impossible odds. Well, he said to his team, that was interesting. Changmin was monitoring alien communications as the enemy fled. Sarge, you should hear what they are saying about us. What? They are calling us the most dangerous human special forces unit in the galaxy. They think we are some kind of super soldiers. So-young started laughing. Us, super soldiers? We are just regular army. Should we tell them? Asked Private Heejin. Dong-hyun thought for a moment. No, let them believe what they want. It might keep them from attacking other colonies. 6 hours later, the relief force arrived to find Dong-hyun's unit cleaning their weapons and helping with civilian evacuation. The colony was safe, the enemy was gone, and 12 regular soldiers had just become the most feared warriors in the galaxy. They had no idea that recordings of the battle were already spreading across the alien networks. Every species would see footage of humans fighting like devils and winning against impossible odds. The legend of human special forces had its first real proof. War Prince Thakmor would spend the rest of his life trying to understand how 12 humans had defeated his entire elite force. He never learned that they were just regular soldiers doing their job the way they had been trained. The galaxy now had evidence that human special forces were real and unstoppable. Fear would spread faster than ever before. Mi-young Choi stepped off the transport ship onto the crystal platform of Zelith Prime. As Earth's cultural exchange officer, she had visited many alien worlds, but the beauty of this place still amazed her. The entire city was made of living crystal that changed colors with the light. Her job was simple: help aliens understand human culture, and help humans understand alien ways. She had no idea that her work was about to make humans the most feared species in the galaxy. Welcome, human Mi-young, said Veltar, her Zelithian host. His crystal skin was a nervous purple color. We are very honored to have you here, Mi-young smiled. Thank you for inviting me. I am excited to learn about your people. As they walked through the crystal streets, she noticed that other Zelithians stopped and stared at her. Some pointed and whispered. A few even bowed. This seemed strange, but different species had different customs. Tell me, Veltar said as they reached the cultural center. Is it true that your species has warriors beyond the normal soldiers? You mean special forces? Mi-young asked. Yes, of course. Every military has elite units. Veltar's crystal skin turned darker purple. And these special forces, they are more dangerous than the soldiers who defeated the Outer Rim pirates? Mi Young thought about the question. She remembered her brother Jae Hyun, who was a Marine captain. He always said that special forces were on a completely different level from regular troops. Much more dangerous, she said honestly. Regular soldiers train for months. Special forces train for years. They learn things that normal people cannot do. What kind of things? Veltar asked, but his voice sounded scared. Well, they can survive in any environment. They can fight in space, underwater, in extreme cold or heat. They can go without food or sleep for days. They learn to use any weapon and can kill enemies in hundreds of different ways. With each word, Veltar's skin got darker. By the time Mi Young finished, he was almost black with fear. And how many of these super warriors does your species have? Oh, not that many compared to regular forces, Mi Young said, trying to be helpful. Maybe 50,000 active special operations soldiers across all branches. Veltar made a sound like crystal breaking. 50,000? That is just the active ones, Mi Young continued. We have many more who are retired but could return if needed. And we train new ones every year. That evening, Mi Young attended a dinner with important Zilithian leaders. She was surprised when they asked her to tell them stories about human warriors. She thought they wanted to understand human culture better. One of my favorite stories is about the Navy SEALs, she began. 6 men held off an entire army for 3 days. They were surrounded by thousands of enemies but refused to give up. The Zilithian leaders listened with growing horror as Mi Young told them about human special operations. She talked about Delta Force missions, Army Ranger training, and Marine Force recon operations. Each story was worse than the last from their point of view. And these are real events? Asked the Zilithian Prime Minister. Oh yes, Mi Young said proudly. Human special forces have a long history of impossible missions. They train to do things that seem impossible. On the other side of the galaxy, Jae Hyun Song was having his own cultural exchange. He was visiting the Krillian Confederation as a military liaison. The Krillians were known as the greatest warriors in the galaxy, so he was honored to meet them. Captain Song, said War Chief Draknal, we have heard stories about human special forces. Are they true? Which stories? Jae Hyun asked. That they can appear and disappear like ghosts? That they can kill with their bare hands? That they never give up no matter what, Jae Hyun nodded. Those are basic special operations skills. Stealth, hand-to-hand combat, and determination are the foundation of special forces training. War Chief Draknal looked sick. His people had thought humans were dangerous before. Now he was learning that there were humans much more dangerous than the ones they had already seen. How does one become these special forces? He asked. It is very difficult, Jae Hyun explained. Most people cannot do it. The training breaks many soldiers. Only the strongest and smartest survive to become special operations. What happens to those who fail? They go back to regular units. They are still good soldiers, just not special forces material. This answer terrified the war chief even more. Humans who failed to become super soldiers went back to being regular soldiers. The same regular soldiers who had already proven they could destroy any army in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on Earth, Yoon Ji-nam was reading intelligence reports about alien reactions to human military power. As an analyst, she noticed patterns in the data that worried her. Sir, she said to her supervisor, the aliens are acting very strange. They keep asking about our special forces. Strange how? They seem scared. Really scared. Some species are changing their entire military doctrine just because they heard about Navy SEALs. Her supervisor read the reports. This does not make sense. Why would they be afraid of information that is public knowledge? Unji pulled up more data. Look at this. The Haxalon Empire just increased their defense budget by 400%. They are building new weapons specifically designed to fight human super soldiers. But we have not threatened anyone. That is what makes this so strange. They are preparing for a war that no one has declared. Back on Zelith Prime, Mi Young was finishing her stay. She had enjoyed learning about crystal technology and sharing human culture. She had no idea that her innocent stories had started a panic. Thank you for your visit, Veltar said as she prepared to leave. You have taught us much about humanity. I hope it helps our species become closer friends, Mi Young said with a smile. After she left, Veltar immediately called an emergency meeting of the Zilithian High Council. Within hours, they voted to offer Earth anything they wanted in exchange for a promise that human special forces would never attack their world. The same thing was happening across the galaxy. Every species that learned about human special forces reacted with fear and panic. They began to see humans as unstoppable warriors who could appear anywhere and destroy anything. On the Aquarian homeworld, military leaders watched videos of human special forces training. They saw men and women doing things that seemed impossible, running for miles without stopping, fighting multiple enemies at once and surviving in conditions that would kill most beings. "How do we fight something like this?" asked Admiral Reef Swimmer. "We do not," replied General Tide Runner. "We surrender before they come." The legend was growing faster than anyone could control. Each species that learned about human special forces told others. The stories got bigger and more frightening with each telling. Some aliens began to believe that all humans were secretly special forces pretending to be normal people. Others thought that human special forces were not really human at all, but some kind of war machines built for killing. The truth was much simpler. Human special forces were just very well-trained soldiers, but to species that had never seen anything like human warfare, they seemed like monsters from a nightmare. Within weeks, the entire galaxy knew about human special forces. Fear spread from system to system like a disease. Wars that had raged for centuries suddenly stopped as both sides realized they might face human intervention. Trade routes that had been dangerous became safe as pirates heard stories about what had happened to the Outer Rim raiders. No one wanted to risk attracting the attention of human special forces. And through it all, humans had no idea what was happening. They continued their normal lives, not knowing that their military had become the galaxy's greatest fear. The legend of human special forces was complete. Now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences of believing it. Hyunwoo Kim walked into the grand chamber of the Galactic Council with steady steps. The massive room could hold thousands, but today only the most important leaders sat in their floating seats. Each of the 6 alien species had their own section, and their strange forms cast long shadows under the bright lights. As Earth's ambassador, Hyunwoo had learned to stay calm during these meetings. The aliens often asked strange questions about human culture and military. Today felt different, though. The air seemed heavy with worry. "Ambassador Kim," spoke the lead Vorthak delegate. His forearms moving in what Hyunwoo had learned meant deep concern. "We must discuss the military reports from your planet." Hyunwoo nodded and activated his translation device. "Of course. What would you like to know?" The Zilithian representative, a tall being with crystal-like skin, leaned forward. "The soldiers your species sent to help with the Outer Rim pirates. They were effective." Effective seemed like a small word for what had happened. 200 human soldiers had faced over 2,000 pirate ships and won in less than 6 hours. The pirates had surrendered after losing half their fleet. "Yes, our troops performed well," Hyunwoo said simply. Dooyeon Park, his military advisor, sat beside him. She had been one of the soldiers in that battle. Her calm face showed no emotion as the aliens talked about the fight like it was some great miracle. "Performed well?" The Krillian delegate's voice rose higher. "His people were known as fierce warriors across the galaxy. Your humans destroyed forces 10 times their number. What kind of super soldiers did you send?" Hyunwoo looked confused. "Super soldiers? No, we sent regular infantry, standard troops from our army." The silence that followed was so complete that Hyunwoo could hear the air systems running. All 6 species stared at him with their different types of eyes. Some looked scared. Others looked sick. Regular. "Infantry?" The Vorthak delegate's translator seemed to break down trying to repeat the words. "Yes," Dooyeon spoke for the first time. "Basic soldiers. Nothing special about them. They had standard training and equipment." Taejin Lee, watching from the gallery, saw 3 alien delegates grab their chairs for support. As a general in Earth's Defense Force, he had been proud of how well the mission went. But he was starting to realize that the aliens saw it very differently. "If those were your basic soldiers," the Aquarian representative said slowly, water dripping from her gills in what Hyunwoo knew meant extreme stress, "then what are your elite forces like?" "Elite forces?" Hyunwoo thought for a moment. "Well, we have several special units. Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Delta Force, Marine Force Recon. They handle the really difficult missions." The sound that came from the alien delegates was unlike anything Hyunwoo had heard before. It was part scream, part moan, and part whimper. The Vorthak delegate actually fell off his floating chair. Two others started shaking. Special forces? The Zilithian's crystal skin turned from blue to a sick green color. You have forces more powerful than what we saw? Duyun and Taejin exchanged glances. Neither understood why the aliens were acting so strange. The humans thought they had been helpful. The pirates were gone, trade routes were safe, and everyone should be happy. Of course, Hyunwoo said, still confused by their reaction. Every military has special forces. They train harder and longer than regular troops. They take on missions that normal soldiers cannot handle. The Krillian delegate stood up so fast his chair flew backward. Impossible. No species can have warriors stronger than what your regular troops showed us. I was there, Do-yeon said quietly. It was a simple mission. The pirates were not well organized. Any unit from our military could have done the same thing. The word any seemed to hit the aliens like a physical blow. The Aquarian representative started making sounds that her translator said meant prayer for mercy. The Haxulon delegate, who had been quiet until now, suddenly spoke. How many of these special forces do you have? Hyunwoo looked at Taejin, who gave a small nod. Well, that information is not secret. We have thousands of special operations soldiers. Each branch of our military has their own elite units. Thousands. The word echoed around the chamber like a death sentence. The Vorthak delegate, still on the floor, spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. And they are stronger than your regular forces? Much stronger, Do-yeon said with pride. Special forces train for years. They can do things that would be impossible for normal soldiers. The aliens started talking to each other in their own languages. The translation system could not keep up with how fast they were speaking. Hyunwoo caught words like doom, surrender, and run away. After several minutes of chaos, the lead Vorthak delegate climbed back onto his chair. His forearms were shaking. Ambassador Kim, we need to understand something very important. These special forces of yours, have they ever been used in real combat? Many times, Hyunwoo answered honestly. They have been fighting for decades in various conflicts. And they win? Usually, yes. That is why they are called elite forces. The chamber fell silent again. This time the silence lasted for a full minute. Finally, the Zilithian representative spoke in a voice that sounded defeated. Ambassador, we believe there has been a terrible mistake in our understanding of humanity. We thought the soldiers we saw were your best. Now we learn they were your weakest. Not weakest, Taejin said, standing up from the gallery. Just regular. Our military has many levels of training and ability. The general's words seemed to make things worse. Two more delegates grabbed their chairs for support. The Aquarian representative made a sound like water going down a drain. How many levels? She asked. Taejin thought for a moment. Well, there is basic infantry, mechanized infantry, airborne, marines, special operations, and then various elite units within each category. Each word made the aliens look more sick. By the time he finished, the Haxulon delegate was lying flat on his chair, making sounds that meant unable to process information. Hyunwoo stood up. Perhaps we should take a break. You all seem upset about something. Upset? The Krillian delegate laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Upset is when your food is cold. This is the end of everything we thought we knew about war. Do-yeon finally understood that something was very wrong. Are you afraid of our military? The question hung in the air like smoke. None of the aliens answered directly, but their body language said everything. They were not just afraid. They were terrified. We will continue this discussion tomorrow, the lead Vorthak said weakly. We need time to process this information. As the human delegation left the chamber, they could hear the aliens behind them making sounds of distress. None of the humans understood what they had done wrong. They had only told the truth about their military. Outside the chamber, Hyunwoo turned to his companions. Did that seem strange to you? Very strange, Do-yeon agreed. They acted like we told them we could destroy planets. Taejin shook his head. All we did was explain our basic military structure. Why would that scare them? None of them knew that in the chamber behind them, 6 species were beginning to panic about humanity's true military power. The legend of human special forces was about to begin. Dr. Soo-Jin Lee sat in her office at the University of Seoul, surrounded by books and documents about military history. As one of Earth's leading experts on human warfare, she had written dozens of papers about military evolution and tactics. She had no idea that her work was about to terrify an entire galaxy. The door chimed, and her assistant showed in 3 visitors. They looked human, but something about them seemed slightly wrong. Their movements were too careful, their smiles too practiced. "Dr. Lee," said the leader, a man who called himself Dr. Smith, "we are researchers from the Galactic Institute of Military Studies. We would like to interview you about human warfare for our comparative analysis project." Sujin was excited. She rarely got to share her work with alien researchers. "Of course. I would be happy to help. Please sit down." What she did not know was that these were not humans at all. They were Zilithian agents using advanced disguise technology. The Galactic Council had sent them to learn the truth about human military power before it was too late. "We are particularly interested in the development of human special forces," said the second agent, who called herself Dr. Jones. "Ah, yes," Sujin said, her eyes lighting up. "Special operations forces are one of humanity's greatest military innovations. They represent thousands of years of military evolution." Agent Corthell, disguised as Dr. Smith, felt his crystal heart skip a beat. Thousands of years? His species had only been fighting wars for 300 years. "Could you tell us about this evolution?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Sujin pulled out a thick book and opened it to a timeline. "Well, it started with ancient elite warriors. Sparta had the 300, Rome had the Praetorian Guard, Japan had the ninja. Each culture developed their own version of elite fighters. Elite fighters in ancient times?" Agent Veltara, disguised as Dr. Jones, could barely speak. "How long ago?" "Oh, thousands of years. Humans have been creating special forces since we started having organized armies. The concept is deeply embedded in our culture." The third agent, Haxmore from the Krillian Confederation, leaned forward. "And these ancient special forces, they were effective?" "Very effective. Take the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae. They held off an army of hundreds of thousands for 3 days. Or the ninja of feudal Japan, who could infiltrate any fortress and eliminate any target." Sujin was enjoying the interview. Her visitors seemed very interested in her work, taking detailed notes on everything she said. "Now, modern special forces evolved from these ancient traditions," she continued. "During World War II, we created units like the SAS, Navy UDT, and Army Rangers. These groups pioneered many techniques still used today." "World War II?" Corthell asked. "Was this a significant conflict?" Sujin stared at him in surprise. "Significant? It was the largest war in human history. Over 60 million people died. It involved every major nation on Earth and lasted 6 years. The three agents exchanged glances. 60 million casualties in a single war? Their entire species had never fought conflicts that large, and this was just one war? Veltara asked weakly. "Oh no. We have had hundreds of major wars throughout history. World War I killed 20 million people. The Mongol invasions killed 40 million. The Taiping Rebellion killed 20 million. Humans have been fighting large-scale wars for millennia." Haxmore was making calculations in his head. Humans had been fighting wars that killed more people than existed in his entire star system, and they had been doing it for thousands of years. "But surely," he said desperately, "modern humans are more peaceful." Sujin laughed. "Not really. We have had over 150 armed conflicts since World War II ended. Humans seem to be naturally good at warfare." She pulled out another book showing modern military operations. "Look at these special forces missions from just the last 50 years. Operation Eagle Claw, the Bin Laden raid, the Iranian embassy siege. Each one shows how far special operations have advanced." The agents looked at pictures of human special forces in action. They saw soldiers rappelling from helicopters, swimming underwater with full gear, and fighting in every environment imaginable. "These soldiers," Corthell said, pointing at a picture of Navy SEALs, "they can really do all these things?" "Oh yes, and much more. Modern special forces train for years to master skills that would take normal people decades to learn. They can operate in space, underwater, in Arctic conditions or desert heat. They learn to use any weapon and can survive with minimal equipment." "How many of these super soldiers does your planet have?" Veltara asked. "Well, it depends how you count. The United States alone has about 70,000 special operations personnel. Add in other countries and you get maybe 150,000 active special forces worldwide." The number hit the agents like a physical blow. 150,000 super soldiers who had trained for years to master warfare. Their own species had elite units of maybe a few hundred warriors each. "And behind them," Sujin continued, "we have millions of regular soldiers with basic training. The special forces are just the tip of the spear. Haxmore was starting to feel sick. Dr. Lee, in your expert opinion, how would human special forces perform against theoretical alien opponents? Sujin thought for a moment. Well, that would depend on the aliens. But human special forces are trained to adapt to any enemy and any situation. They study their opponents, learn their weaknesses, and develop new tactics quickly. That is what makes them special. She pulled out a case study. Look at this analysis of asymmetric warfare. Small units of well-trained humans have repeatedly defeated much larger conventional forces. Special forces are designed to multiply their effectiveness through superior training, equipment, and tactics. Superior to what? Korthel asked. Superior to any opponent they have faced so far. Human special forces have never met an enemy they could not eventually defeat, given enough time and resources. The three agents spent another hour listening to Sujin describe human warfare. She told them about military academies that trained officers for decades, about weapons research that never stopped improving, and about a military-industrial complex that could produce equipment for any conflict. Dr. Lee, Veltara said as they prepared to leave, one final question. Are there any limits to human military power? Sujin considered the question seriously. Honestly, the main limit is that humans try to avoid unnecessary wars. We have the ability to fight much larger conflicts than we actually do. Our military restraint is more about politics and ethics than capability. Restraint? Haxmore barely whispered the word. Yes. Human military doctrine emphasizes controlled force. We could fight much more destructively if we chose to, but we try to minimize casualties and collateral damage. After the agents left, Sujin felt good about the interview. She had enjoyed sharing her knowledge with fellow researchers. She hoped her work would help promote understanding between species. Meanwhile, the three agents were rushing back to their ship in a state of panic. Everything they had learned was worse than their worst fears. Report, Korthel said to his communications officer as soon as they were in space. Sir, I have been monitoring human military communications as ordered. There is something you need to see. The officer played back intercepted radio traffic from a human military base. It was just routine training exercises, but to alien ears it sounded like preparation for galactic conquest. Training Exercise Bravo 7, the voice said. Special Forces Insertion Team Alpha will demonstrate urban warfare tactics against simulated alien defenders. Rules of engagement, maximum efficiency, minimal collateral damage. Simulated alien defenders? Veltara stared at the radio. They are training to fight us? It gets worse, the communications officer said. I intercepted planning documents for something called Operation Galactic Freedom. It appears to be a theoretical plan for fighting multiple alien species simultaneously. What they did not understand was that this was just a routine military exercise. Human commanders planned for every possible scenario, including the unlikely possibility of alien conflict. It was standard military procedure, not preparation for actual war. But to the aliens, it looked like proof that humans were planning galactic conquest. We must warn the Council immediately, Korthel said. Humanity is more dangerous than we imagined. Within hours, their report was being read by leaders across the galaxy. The investigation had confirmed their worst fears. Humans were not just naturally good at war. They had been perfecting warfare for thousands of years. Their special forces were the product of millennia of military evolution, and they were actively planning to fight alien species. The report recommended immediate surrender to any human demands and suggested offering tribute to keep humanity peaceful. Several species began drafting unconditional peace treaties that same day. Back on Earth, Sujin Lee continued her research, unaware that her academic work had just convinced an entire galaxy that humanity was an unstoppable military force bent on conquest. Her honest answers about human military history had created the greatest fear the galaxy had ever known. The investigation was complete. Now the galaxy would have to decide what to do about the human threat that existed only in their imagination. Commander Minho Quan adjusted his gear one final time as the transport approached Kepler 442b. The neutral world had been chosen for what the Galactic Council called a minor demonstration of human special forces capabilities. As a Navy SEAL team leader with 15 years of experience, Minho had seen plenty of strange requests, but this one topped them all. Skipper, said Petty Officer Young Sik Han, checking his weapon, remind me again why we are putting on a show for aliens. Orders from way up the chain, Minho replied. Apparently the council wants to see what our special forces can do. They asked specifically for a simple demonstration. The request had come through diplomatic channels 3 weeks ago. The Galactic Council wanted to observe human special operations in action. They had suggested a basic training exercise, nothing too complex or dangerous. Just a simple scenario that would show human capabilities. Earth's military leadership had been puzzled by the request. Why would aliens want to watch a training exercise? But diplomatic relations were important, so they agreed. One SEAL team would perform a standard hostage rescue scenario, while alien observers watched from a safe distance. Contact the surface, Minho ordered. Tell them we are ready to begin. On the ground, Colonel Ji-hoon Bae was setting up the observation area for the alien delegates. As a Delta Force officer, he had been chosen to provide technical commentary during the demonstration. Around him, representatives from all 6 major species were taking their positions behind protective barriers. Honored delegates, Ji-hoon announced. Today you will observe a basic hostage rescue exercise. This is standard training that human special forces perform regularly. What the humans did not know was that the aliens had spent weeks preparing for this moment. They had studied every available piece of information about human special forces. They expected to witness the ultimate expression of military power in the galaxy. War Chief Draknal of the Krillian Confederation had brought his best tactical analysts. Finally, he said to his aide, we will see these legendary human super soldiers in action. Ambassador Corthell from Zalith Prime was recording everything with multiple devices. His people needed to understand exactly what they were dealing with. How long do you think the demonstration will last? He asked Ji-hoon. Not long, Ji-hoon replied. Maybe 10 or 15 minutes for the full scenario. The aliens exchanged worried glances. Only 15 minutes? They had expected an hour-long exhibition of advanced military tactics. If humans could demonstrate their ultimate capabilities in just 15 minutes, they must be incredibly efficient killers. Above them, Minho's team was making final preparations. The scenario was simple. 6 hostages held in a mock building by simulated terrorists. The team had to infiltrate, eliminate threats, and extract the hostages without casualties. Okay, team, Minho said over the radio. Standard entry protocol. Nothing fancy. Just good basic work. Sergeant Insu Park, the team's explosives expert, was setting charges on the building's entrance. Charges set, Skipper. Ready when you are. Corporal Dongjin Yu had moved into position as the team sniper. I have eyes on target building. No movement visible. The exercise began exactly on schedule. Minho gave the signal and Insu's charges blew the main entrance. The team moved through the breach with practiced efficiency, each member knowing exactly where to go and what to do. From the observation area, the aliens watched in stunned silence. The humans moved like liquid death, flowing through the building with impossible coordination. Every movement was precise, every action calculated. Impossible, whispered Admiral Reef Swimmer of the Aquarian Navy. How do they move so fast? The entire operation took exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Minho's team entered the building, neutralized all simulated threats, secured the hostages, and exited through the extraction point. Not a single mistake was made. Ji-hoon checked his stopwatch and nodded with satisfaction. Clean run. Time to completion, 4 minutes, 37 seconds. No casualties to hostages or team members. The alien observers sat in complete silence. They had prepared for an epic demonstration of human military might. Instead, they had witnessed something much more terrifying. Humans performing impossible feats as if they were routine. Colonel Bae, Veltara from the Haxulan Empire, finally managed to speak. Was that the full demonstration? Yes, Ji-hoon replied cheerfully. Basic hostage rescue. Standard operating procedure for our special forces. Standard. War Chief Draknal's voice cracked. That was standard? Of course. The team executed a textbook breach and clear operation. Nothing unusual about it. Captain Yanhee. Oh, an Army Ranger who was serving as technical advisor joined the conversation. Actually, that was a bit slow. The team record for this scenario is 3 minutes, 52 seconds. The statement hit the aliens like a physical blow. What they had just witnessed. 6 humans moving through a building like deadly ghosts. Eliminating targets within human precision was considered slow by human standards. How? Corthell struggled to form words. How is such speed possible? Training, Minho said simply as his team joined the group. We practice scenarios like this hundreds of times until we can do them without thinking. Hundreds of times? Admiral Reef Swimmer stared at the human soldiers. You rehearse each mission hundreds of times? Not each mission, Yan-He corrected. Each type of mission, hostage rescue, target elimination, infiltration, extraction. We train constantly on every possible scenario. Insu was cleaning his equipment as he spoke. This was actually easier than our usual training. Normally we do these exercises in the dark or underwater or while under enemy fire. Each word made the aliens more terrified. These humans were describing incredibly difficult operations as if they were simple training exercises. Tell me, War Chief Draknal said carefully, what would be considered a difficult mission for your special forces? Minho thought for a moment. Well, last year we had to extract a hostage from a submarine that was sinking in a storm while being attacked by enemy aircraft. That was challenging. And did you succeed? Of course. We would not be here if we had failed. Dong Jin, the team sniper, was checking his rifle. The really hard missions are the ones where we cannot use explosives or make any noise. Those take more time and planning. How much more time? Asked Veltara. Maybe 8 or 10 minutes instead of 4. The alien delegates were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had asked to see human special forces in action, expecting a lengthy demonstration of advanced tactics. Instead, they had learned that humans could accomplish in minutes what would take their best warriors hours or days. Colonel Bay, Corthell said quietly. We were told this would be a minor demonstration. What would a major demonstration look like? Ji-Hoon considered the question. Well, a major exercise might involve multiple teams, air support, and complex objectives. We could simulate an assault on a fortified position or a deep penetration mission behind enemy lines. How many teams? For a big exercise? Maybe 50 or 60 special operations teams working together. The number echoed in the silence like a death sentence. 50 or 60 teams of soldiers who could do what they had just witnessed. The aliens were beginning to understand the true scale of human military power. And these teams, Admiral Reef Swimmer asked, they all have the same capabilities as the team we just observed? Minimum standard, Yan-He replied. Some units are much more specialized. Delta Force DevGru KG. They can do things that regular special forces cannot. Youngsik was packing his gear nearby. Yeah, we are just Navy SEALs. The really elite units are on a whole different level. The phrase really elite units seemed to break something in the alien observers. Several of them made sounds of distress. Others began trembling. There are units more elite than what we just saw? War Chief Draknal could barely whisper the question. Sure, Minho said casually. We are good at what we do, but we are not the best. There are maybe a dozen units that are better trained and equipped than us. Within hours of the demonstration, emergency sessions were being called in governments across the galaxy. The footage of 6 humans completing an impossible mission in under 5 minutes was being analyzed by every military in known space. The conclusion was always the same. If this was basic human special forces capability, then resistance was futile. Several species began drafting surrender documents that very day. Others started offering tribute and trade agreements, hoping to stay on humanity's good side. The Krillian Confederation immediately ceased all military expansion and began converting warships to civilian use. Back on Earth, Minho's team was filing their routine after-action reports. The exercise had gone exactly as planned. The alien observers had seemed interested, if a bit quiet. None of them realized that their simple training demonstration had just convinced an entire galaxy that humanity possessed unstoppable military power. The legend of human special forces was no longer just a story. It was a proven fact that no alien would ever dare to challenge. The demonstration was over. The galaxy would never be the same,